This is episode 75 of That Shakespeare Life. This episode is brought to you in part by Audio Shakespeare Pronunciation App, the only audio Shakespeare pronunciation app, which is designed to remove fears about how to speak Shakespeare's language so that his plays are accessible to everyone. Find out more about this app in today's show notes and stay tuned after the episode for how you can learn more.
So hi, I'm François Larocque, Emeritus Professor of English Literature and Early Modern Drama at Université de la Sorbonne Nouvelle, Paris 3, Paris 3, and I'm the author of Shakespeare's Festive World. Another great method for studying the life of William Shakespeare includes listening to this, That's Shakespeare Life, with my friend, Cassidy Cash.
There's reports of James V giving them as gifts for foreign dignitaries. When they're first produced, they are pocket change. What happens as Scotland adjusts its coinage, and it's a common practice that all monarchs do, is they would bring the coinage that had formerly been in circulation, they would ask that it be returned to the mint so that it could be melted down and issued as new coinage. That would have been the case with unicorns.
Welcome to That Shakespeare Life with Cassidy Cash. Cassidy believes that if you desire to successfully learn or perform Shakespeare's plays, then understanding the real life and history of William Shakespeare himself is a must. That Shakespeare Life is the podcast that helps you go beyond the curtain of some of Shakespeare's most iconic works and explore the world of early modern England as Shakespeare would have lived it, learning from the writers, historians, and performers who know it best. And now, here's Cassidy.
When we think of unicorns, we most often think of the mythical creature roaming forests in Europe, or if you're from the UK, you'll likely make a connection with the famous nursery rhyme called The Lion and the Unicorn. In addition to being the national animal for Scotland and a symbol for their strength and independence, for Shakespeare and the 16th century society in Scotland, the unicorn is a type of currency. Minted originally by James III of Scotland, it would be James VI of Scotland, who is also James I of England, who would bring the Scottish unicorn into the national symbolism for Britain as a whole. Here this week to help us explore the advent of the Scottish unicorn on Britain's royal coat of arms, as well as the numismatic history of the Scottish unicorn as a coin, is our guest, Dr. Crystal Lake. Crystal Lake is professor of English and literature at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. She is also the co-founder and editor of the online magazine The Rambling, which you can find at therambling.com. Crystal's book, Artifacts, will be published in paperback by Johns Hopkins University Press in the spring of 2020, and you can read more about her and her research at crystallakepphd.com. Hello, Crystal. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Cassidy.
Why does Scotland have this love affair with the unicorn?
Well, I think unicorns are inherently lovable. Am I right?
I think so, yes.
They're beautiful. We have this vision of them as these white, elegant, stately creatures, and their horns. Everyone wanted to have one in the early modern period. They were collectibles and cabinets of curiosities. So I think that unicorns are inherently lovable creatures. One of the things that I think, though, is really fascinating is they don't always look like, or people did not want to imagine that they looked the way we imagine them looking. I don't know if you ever had like My Little Ponies. Or
do I have to admit to that? But yes, I had a whole line of them.
I think that looking at early modern images of unicorns are fascinating because they're kind of a hybrid mix of elephants and donkeys and rhinoceroses. And of course, when people collected so-called unicorn horns in the early modern period, they were really collecting narwhal horns. But as for why, I think they're intriguing creatures. Scotland specifically has a culture of folklore and myth that probably made unicorns even more compelling than they might otherwise have been.
But they didn't just limit their fascination to the animal. I think Scotland is so fascinating to me for a variety of reasons, but particularly with the unicorn, I felt like their connection to it was widespread and really of national importance. But they didn't just enjoy the animal. They actually had a coin that's called the unicorn. And Crystal, why was that particular coin called the unicorn? Because this isn't like a generic term for all of their Scotland's currency, correct?
Correct. I mean, I think that we often use the word unicorn metaphorically all the time these days, right? That's a unicorn. You found one. But you could find an actual unicorn, but not an actual unicorn in Scotland, which is to say you could find these coins. And the coins were called unicorns because, of course, they featured a unicorn prominently on their obverses. And the obverse of a coin is what we would just more casually describe as the front of the coin, where normally you might see the head of a monarch or a historical figure. Unicorn coins in Scotland had a unicorn on them.
I know that in England today, Queen Elizabeth II, that's reigning in England, she has a shield a royal coat of arms that pictures a lion and a unicorn holding up the shield. Now, there's a distinction, I think, Crystal, between the shield and the coat of arms and the featuring of this unicorn and the lion, and they're different in England or in Scotland. Will you explain the distinction for us and how the unicorn and the lion play together there?
Yeah, I think that's a really fascinating question and a fascinating history of symbolism, visual symbolism. So James IV, and you'll remember James III is who first issued the unicorn coin. James IV added the unicorn to Scotland's royal coat of arms.
According to legend, the unicorn can actually conquer a lion, which made it surprising to me that for a national symbol, they would choose to put the unicorn and the lion there together, which may have been James VI's motivation in the first place, considering his focus on trying to unify these countries. But Crystal, how did this royal coat of arms being designed by James VI in 1603 as he's, coming in and taking over the monarchy after Elizabeth, considering the rather tempestuous relationship between the unicorn and the lion. What was the reception of this when he debuted this to the nation?
Well, I actually think that there's some scholarly debate about the significance of including the lion and the unicorn together on the royal coat of arms following James I's coronation in 1603. I mean, remember, the unicorn and the lion were together on James III's original unicorn coin, right? There's the unicorn in the background on the obverse, and then the shield with that ruddy lion in the foreground. Personally, then, I think it's a little bit of an anachronism to read the royal coat of arms that appeared in James I's reign as a secret code declaring something like the superiority of the unicorn over the lion. I think it's important to remember that the lion was also a symbol of Christ, and that the unicorn's chivalric medieval association with virginity often meant that it was a symbol of Christ's mother, the Virgin Mary. So it's hard to imagine medieval or early modern narratives pitting Christ as lion against his own mother, the Virgin Mary, as a unicorn. It's totally true that in some of the lore that developed around unicorns, creatures were often depicted as the lion's natural enemy. And perhaps that's a consequence of some confusion over whether or not the unicorn as described by ancient writers was even a real animal. When people in early modern England encountered descriptions of unicorns in ancient writings, it's not clear if they were reading about rhinoceroses, for example, and in which case the rhinoceros and the lion would be locked in some battle in representations of nature. So in this lore where myth and natural history mingle, it's important to remember that lions, though, were just as frequently depicted as the victors when they battled with unicorns. So one text that I looked up from the early 16th century reports, for example, that unicorns slay many lions. So that part's true. But the lion slayeth the unicorn with subtleness. And this refers to a fabular rending of the lion and the unicorn in battle. And during the battle, the lion sort of sneakily stands in front of a tree. So when the unicorn charges it, the unicorn's horn gets stuck in the tree, and then the lion can kill it. I haven't found any scholarship that discusses the public's reception of the changes to the royal arms that were made during the reign of James I. And I suspect that our sense of the contest between the unicorn and the lion as a political allegory really dates to the conflicts between Scotland and England that developed later in the 17th and 18th centuries. So this is when folklore state, for example, the emergence of that nursery rhyme, The Lion and the Unicorn, which does depict them in battle. And certainly that nursery rhyme suggests that the English preferred the lion over the unicorn. So that's a long-winded way of saying, I think that James I puts the unicorn and the lion together as a symbol of peace and connection. And it's later that they become conveniently read as antagonists.
So just practically speaking, when James comes to England and sits on the throne, would these coins have come with his court during his arrival in 1603? Are these coins that Shakespeare would have seen?
That's such a great question. And the answer is, I don't know. And I think probably not. So I haven't found any evidence that the unicorn coins came to England with James in 1603. James V stopped issuing coins, unicorn coins, in 1519. And even during James V's reign, it looks like unicorn coins were taken out of circulation and reserved for special purchases. So James V would pay his soldiers exclusively with them. Sometimes there's reports of James V giving them as gifts for foreign dignitaries. Mary, Queen of Scots, James VI's immediate predecessor, didn't issue unicorn coins at all. So you're looking at it's been, 80 years since they've even been produced.
Okay, so they weren't public coins. These aren't like pocket change that people would have had carrying about with them. These were like royal gifts of significance to ambassadors, or like when the Queen would visit or something like that.
That's such a yes, and also no. When they're first produced, they are pocket change. What happens as Scotland adjusts its coinage, and it's a common practice that all monarchs do, is they would bring the coinage that had formerly been in circulation. They would ask that it be returned to the mint so that it could be melted down and issued as new coinage. And that would have been the case with unicorns. So where they were first common currency, they would have been turned in, melted down, and remade as different coins. And so they also became more exclusively used for special purposes. They were often touted as pure Scottish gold when they were celebrated.
So this wouldn't have been something that was accepted in England as a type of currency, even after James tried to unify England and Scotland under one banner. They didn't mix these kinds of things.
They didn't mix these kinds of things. Scottish currency had been debased in the years before James VI took the throne. And in 1604, now James I of England declared that Scottish and English money would be minted according to the same unified standard. And he introduced a new gold coin, conveniently called a unite, that brought the English and Scottish coinages into alignment.
Just to touch briefly back on the royal coat of arms, we talked a lot about how it was a unification of Scotland and England with the lion and the unicorn, but these were not the only nations that James was attempting to unify, because there was also, as you mentioned, France and Ireland, but I believe also Wales. Are all of these countries depicted or represented in the royal coat of arms?
James I's royal coat of arms featured a symbol for England, and intermixed in that symbol for England were the symbols of France, because James was declaring his authority as the ruler of France. Also in that symbolism was the image representing Scotland and the image representing Ireland, which is a harp. There is no, on the shield itself, in James I's rule, rendering or symbolic representation for Wales. And that's because Wales was considered so much a part of England that by England's monarchs that they didn't feel the need to represent it. The other reason, though, that it's not represented on the shield itself is that the Tudor supports for the shield. When James has that lion and that unicorn,
right?
Elizabeth I had a lion and a dragon.
Oh, I see.
And the dragon was a gesture to Wales. So when he takes the dragon off and puts the unicorn on instead, it does diminish Wales's representation on the
poor
Wales coat of arms. Yeah, poor Wales. But we all got a unicorn.
That's true. It's an okay trade, I guess. You have to decide whether you think, you like the dragon or the unicorn better, I guess. But are there still unicorn coins in existence today? I mean, are there places we can go and see them?
The original unicorn coins are mostly to be found now in museums. So on the Scottish National Museums, the British Museums, and the Metropolitan Museum of New York's websites, you can find digital images of unicorn coins that are in each of their collections. The Royal Mint issued a new limited series of unicorn coins for collectors and investors in 2017.
So, that's fascinating. Now I want to go see if I can get a copy.
Inspired by the old coins. Most, yes, but they're very pretty. I still think the old ones are prettier. Most of the new unicorns, though, I have to tell you, Cassidy, have already been snapped up.
Oh, too bad.
I did look for you. You can buy the silver-proof 10-ounce Unicorn of Scotland coin for £795 today. You could go all in and treat yourself to the silver-proof kilo coin for £2,000.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I looked at what an early modern unicorn coin is fetching on the auction market these days.
Yeah, what'd you find?
You wanted to get original. I did find one that sold at auction in, I believe, New York in 2014 for a steal of $28,000.
That's incredible. So they maintain this value that goes beyond what they were minted to represent even today.
Oh, certainly. I mean, they're gold coins for one thing. They're very old for another thing. And then finally, because they were brought back in and melted down and reissued as different species of currency, they're very rare. And of course, they're unicorns.
Now, before we leave the topic of unicorns altogether, I have to ask about another famous horse from Scottish folklore, the Kelpie. Now, what is the difference between a unicorn and a Kelpie?
Now, Cassidy, I haven't seen any of these creatures myself, so I'm going to go on some speculation here.
Okay.
My understanding is that a Kelpie is a water horse that can also come onto the shore and shapeshift into a human form, and then it can lure you into the water where it will drown you and eat you.
So not nearly as lovable as the unicorn.
Right. So I would say that the differences between unicorns and Kelpies would be that unicorns are land dwellers, whereas Kelpies are water dwellers.
And
unicorns
one of them tries to eat you and the other one does not.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Right. One of them will kill you and one of them is more interested in saving you. So.
Okay. Well, that's an important distinction, I think, when we
I think so.
them in the wild. So I love this topic, and I know we would love to explore this further. What are some of your favorite books or resources that you can recommend for places we can go to learn more?
Well, for more about unicorns, the mythical creatures, I recommend Chris Laver's 2010 book called The Natural History of Unicorns. I also learned a lot myself about early modern ideas regarding unicorns from two articles that were both published in 2004. One is by Alexander Plukowski titled Narwhals or Unicorns, and the other one is by Katie Stevenson titled The Unicorn, St. Andrew, and the Thistle. And that one I think was really important for me for understanding how the unicorn functioned in medieval discourses of chivalry, what its sort of symbolic meanings were. I also, in order to understand how the unicorn works on something like a coin's design or heraldic designs like the Royal Coat of Arms, I consulted Hugh Stanford London's classic 1956 study, Royal Beasts. I should also say that I had to go way back through the archives of the Journal of the Royal Numismatic Society to find information about unicorn coins specifically. And a lot of that research doesn't look to me like it's been updated since the early 20th century. So
that's what I was able to find too. Yeah. That's where I ended up when I was trying to find information on the unicorn coin. It was like a myth in and of itself. I could hear whispers of this thing existing and I went to try and find it. And that was the only place I could really find things until I came across some references to coinage on your website. But yeah, and they're so fascinating. I kind of wonder why people aren't writing more about it.
They really are fascinating coins, and they really are visually alluring coins. And I think it's an area that's ripe for some new research.
Well, these are some great resources for us to look at to learn more about this and to explore unicorns further. Absolutely. So we'll be sure to link to these in the show notes for today's episode. Now, Crystal, we ask everyone this next question here at That Shakespeare Life, and that's, what's the one book you would take with you on a deserted island? My friends in England tell me I'm supposed to allow you the complete works of Shakespeare and a copy of the Bible. So this choice would be in addition to those.
I think that English professors everywhere, and I'm an English professor, dread getting this question.
Yes, just one, not 4,000.
Yeah, so I'm going to totally cheat and say I'd take an anthology. And that way I'd at least have a little bit of lots of books.
Yes, but which anthology? And are you going to get specific about the edition you would prefer?
No, I think that you want to grab the biggest one you can get your hands on.
Excellent. Well, that'll keep you busy on your deserted island for sure. So what's next for you? What are you working on now that you're excited about?
My book, Artifacts, How We Think and Write About Found Objects, will be published by Johns Hopkins in the spring in an affordable paperback edition. In that book, I dig back up all the tarnished coins, moldy manuscripts, rusty weapons, and grisly grave goods that intrigued the very first archaeologists. So if you like collecting flea market finds or wandering around museums, or if you've ever found yourself sucked into an episode of Antiques Roadshow, I think my book will help explain what it is that makes old stuff so fascinating.
That sounds amazing. That definitely appeals to me because I have on more than one occasion gotten sucked into an episode of Antiques Roadshow.
Me too. I can tell you the spoiler alert. Do you want to know why?
Why?
I just think artifacts, all those old objects, they are really, really good at getting us to tell interesting but also complicated stories about ourselves and our pasts.
I agree with you. Well, Crystal Lake, we will definitely look forward to the publication of your next book and appreciate so much you taking the time to sit down and discuss unicorns with us today. This has been a really fun look at history.
Thank you so much, Cassidy, for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here.
If you want to explore the history of unicorns further, including seeing some pictures of the Scottish unicorn coin that Crystal talked about in today's episode, make sure to check out the show notes. That's where we keep bonus history and links to recommended resources where you can explore unicorns, Scottish currency, and an honorable mention of the Kelpie and a picture over there too. All at CassidyCash.com/episode 75. That's CassidyCash.com/EP75. When I first started studying Shakespeare, especially as an American, where the English language is very different on this side of the pond than where Shakespeare was writing, I often mispronounced some of the words that you find in the plays. Like originally I said Gloucester instead of Gloucester. Well, that's why I downloaded Audio Shakespeare Pronunciation app. It's an easy-to-use, straightforward app that you can download to your phone or tablet on iTunes as well as Google Play. And it lets you search any word from Shakespeare, and then it tells you exactly how to say it with a playable audio guide built right in. Audio Shakespeare Pronunciation app is like having a professional voice coach that you can carry in your pocket. Explore all the features of this app and download it right now at CassidyCash.com/Shakespeare app. That's CassidyCash.com/Shakespeare app. That's it for this week here at That Shakespeare Life. I'm Cassidy Cash, and I hope you learned something new about the Bard. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to That Shakespeare Life. As always, the best conversations happen after the episode over at CassidyCash.com. Become a part of a vibrant Shakespeare conversation by adding your voice over at the website. Until next time, remember, when you want to know William Shakespeare, you have to go behind the curtain and into That Shakespeare Life.